It's a tough pill to swallow, but let's be real. You weren't betrayed by the world. No, it's simpler and far more brutal than that. You were just naive enough to expect it to play fair. And here's the kicker. Nobody actually cares how kind you are. They don't. What they do care about is how vulnerable you appear, how easily you can be broken, and how long it takes before you finally crumble under pressure. You live your life by the book. You're polite, you work hard, you endure every slight, you constantly lower your own expectations, and then you just wait. You wait for something that, frankly, doesn't exist. Recognition. You actually believe that endless patience will somehow be rewarded, that your kindness will magically make people grateful. But here's the urgent truth. Wake up. The world doesn't operate on your emotions. It never has and it never will. This world runs on power, on position, on the simple, brutal reality of whoever strikes first. You're not truly hurt. You're forgotten. And why? Because you're too damn easy to read. Too easy to manipulate. Too easy to shut down with just a few well-placed critical words. Do you honestly believe you're respected? Or is it possible that you're just not dangerous enough to be hated? Think about it. The strong, they don't ask for permission to exist. They take the position. They make the rules. They control the outcome. And you're still there, patiently waiting to be chosen, still hoping someone will finally treat you right before you even consider pushing back. You're living like a sheep, praying the wolves spare you simply because you're not perceived as valuable enough to even be eaten. Machiavelli, that's Machiavelli, not some self-help guru. He didn't write for the timid. He wrote for the individual who acts before they're manipulated. He wrote for the one who can stare unflinchingly into the true nature of humanity and then, critically, uses it to their advantage. So, let me hit you with a direct question. Are you genuinely building a life of purpose, or are you just desperately avoiding conflict, clinging to the naive hope that it'll somehow earn you peace? The real question, the one that defines everything, is this: will you continue living as a polite victim, or will you finally start thinking like a dangerous, effective leader? You were probably taught to believe in karma, right? That kindness would always find its reward. That hard work would inevitably be recognized. That honesty, above all, earns trust. But here's the fundamental problem: the world doesn't operate like some idealized moral classroom. No, it functions precisely like a chessboard. And in that game, the powerless? They get sacrificed. Those without any real leverage? They get manipulated. And the ones who refuse to push back, who won't stand their ground, they get drained dry. You might genuinely believe you're fighting for justice, but in reality you're just drowning in a system that's meticulously built to crush anyone who can't or won't adapt. Machiavelli, he never said the world was inherently cruel. What he said with chilling accuracy was that it's utterly indifferent to fairness. It only reacts to pressure. You say you don't want to engage in power games. Fine. But understand this: if you refuse to play, you automatically become a pawn in someone else's game. You might think you're noble for avoiding tactics, for steering clear of strategic maneuvers. But to the world, you're just an easy piece to move. A harmless person, and therefore, in their eyes, a useless one. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to bend to another's will. And paradoxically, the more you demand fairness, the more you implicitly admit that you're too weak to actually create it yourself. The world isn't fair by default. It becomes fair when someone strong enough forces it to be. True leaders don't beg for decency. They don't plead for good behavior. Instead, they engineer the conditions that make cooperation the only rational choice for others. Not because people suddenly become kind, but because they simply have no other option. You probably think morality is your strongest weapon, right? Wrong. Pressure is the weapon. And the person who knows how to apply that pressure at precisely the right moment, they rewrite the rules. You're still reacting purely emotionally. You feel offended when someone bypasses you. You feel absolutely entitled to your anger when you're overlooked. But here's the hard truth about that anger: it doesn't make you powerful. It just exposes your own passive helplessness. Instead of endlessly demanding fairness, you need to start creating consequences. Don't whine. Don't complain. Act. Build a reality that fundamentally forces others to adapt to you. No one, and I mean no one, respects a person who simply begs to be treated right. They respect the one who makes them do it. Still clinging to the idea of fairness? Then let's do a quick reality check. Answer this honestly: how many times have you been genuinely kind only to receive coldness in return? How many times have you sacrificed your own time and energy only to be treated as if it was just your job, your obligation? How many times have you patiently waited to be seen only to be completely forgotten? You don't need more virtue. What you desperately need is strategy to survive. If they can trigger your guilt, they can make you apologize for absolutely nothing. If they can trigger your fear, they can easily make you act directly against your own best interests. And if they can trigger your shame, they can control your entire identity. That, my friend, isn't emotion. That's a leash. And if you don't cut it, you'll remain a puppet wrapped in good intentions but pulled in every single direction but your own. You might call yourself empathetic, but you flinch every single time someone expresses disapproval. You constantly adjust yourself, your very being, just to stay likable. You bite your tongue, often painfully, just to keep the peace. That's not leadership. That's mere survival, and the cold, hard fact is it's not working. Machiavelli warned about this exact trap. He stated clearly that a ruler should avoid excessive mercy because mercy, when misapplied, becomes a crack. And cracks eventually turn into leverage for your adversaries. Your soft heart has, without a doubt, cost you more than any declared enemy ever could. Every time you over-explained, every single time you couldn't bring yourself to say no, every instance where you sacrificed your own edge, your own advantage, just to avoid making someone else uncomfortable, that's how power slowly, agonizingly bleeds out of you. Not in one dramatic, grand betrayal, but in hundreds of micro-concessions that you mistakenly believe are signs of maturity. Here's the undeniable truth: the one who cannot govern himself will inevitably be governed by everyone else. You think emotion is authenticity? It's not. Unfiltered emotion is pure exposure, and exposure, my friend, openly invites exploitation. You genuinely want to be strong? Then stop trying to simply feel better. Start focusing on becoming profoundly harder to move, harder to sway, harder to break. Real leaders don't deny their emotions. No, they discipline them. They allow emotion to inform them, to provide valuable data, but never, ever to dictate their response. You can feel angry. You just don't have to act on it. You can feel deeply disrespected. You don't have to break character. You can feel hurt, wounded even, and still hold your line, still maintain your composure. The weak? They lash out impulsively. The strong? They redirect that raw energy like a finely honed weapon. Why? Because they intimately understand that the very second you react emotionally, you've already lost crucial positioning. Let them scream. Let them try to bait you. Let them mock you if that's what they need to do. You, however, stay still. You stay cold. And most importantly, you stay dangerous. That right there is the true art of power. Stillness under fire. Calm in the face of confrontation. A silence so profound it makes others panic because they can't read you. And when they inevitably ask why you're not reacting, why you're not playing their game, just say this with absolute conviction: because I already chose who I am. And you don't get to edit that. They'll probably call you cold. Let them. Because the more heat they throw your way, the more control you effortlessly demonstrate. They genuinely think they can rattle you, but you've already meticulously studied their playbook. You know precisely what triggers they'll pull. You know exactly what wounds they'll try to poke. And yet, you still don't flinch. That, my friend, is terrifying to them. That is leadership. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be impossible to manipulate. So, ask yourself right now, when was the last time someone successfully made you act purely out of guilt? When was the last time fear, genuine fear, made you fold and give in? When was the last time you apologized for something just to be accepted by others? And now, critically, how much of that was truly a strategic move and how much was just sheer weakness, poorly dressed up as empathy? Because if you don't control what moves you, someone else absolutely will. And you'll continue to call it being a good person, all while watching your entire life get written by everyone but you. You were taught, from an early age, to be agreeable. To automatically say yes. To prioritize keeping the peace above all else. To serve first and only ask questions later. You were conditioned to believe that selflessness is inherently noble, that humility somehow makes you worthy, and that kindness is always the moral high ground. But here's what nobody ever bothered to tell you: the true cost. Kindness without power is an invitation to be exploited. It bites back hard. It actively invites predators. It attracts users who will drain you dry. And it guarantees, without a shadow of a doubt, that you'll be perceived as soft, not generous, weak, not benevolent. You give and you give endlessly, but they never reciprocate. You sacrifice your time, your energy, your very boundaries, and they simply interpret it as a clear signal. A signal that you won't fight back. That's not morality. That's failure in disguise. It's fear, thinly wrapped in virtue. It's obedience masquerading as maturity. They might call you a good person, but they will never, ever follow your lead. Why? Because leaders aren't just good. Leaders are effective. You think you're gaining their respect, but in reality they're just coldly calculating how much more they can take from you before you finally snap. Machiavelli, if he were here, would simply laugh. He'd ask with that characteristic smirk, is it truly moral to allow the immoral to walk all over you? Is it strength to let others consistently waste your value, or is it merely cowardice dressed up in some fancy philosophy? Being good is not the same as being useful. Being liked is not the same as being respected. Being kind is certainly not the same as being untouchable. You don't need to be cold, you need to be dangerous, but always in control. Capable of swift retaliation, but restrained by choice, not by fear. If they sense you can't bite, they will never respect your bark. If they know deep down that you won't strike, they will test your limits endlessly, every single time. You think silence is a sign of maturity. Sometimes it's just surrender. You think saying it's okay is peacekeeping. Sometimes it's just passive submission. And the absolute worst part? You're probably proud of it. You genuinely believe you're better than those aggressive ones. But at least they don't get used. At least they get noticed. Your kindness, in contrast, is invisible. Your presence is forgettable. Your power? Non-existent. Kindness should be a tactic, not a personality trait. It should be measured, not automatic. Reserved only for the truly worthy and used specifically when it strengthens your position, not when it drains it. People treat your kindness like it's your default setting because you've never, ever made them pay for abusing it. That's not virtue, that's negligence. You want to lead? Then start rigorously filtering your generosity. Start protecting your time as if it were precious currency, because it is. And for too long, you've been spending it like it's free. Every yes you give to someone else is, in essence, a no to your own mission, your own goals. And every no you avoid saying is a door left wide open for someone to simply walk in and take whatever they want. You want to be kind? Then make your kindness powerful. Back it up with clear boundaries, with unshakable standards, and with unmistakable consequences. Because in the end, people don't truly respect kindness itself. They respect the cost of violating it. So, here's a crucial test. How many people in your life genuinely fear crossing your line? How many respect your silence, not just your words? How many know deep down that you could bite, but choose not to? If the answer to any of those questions is none, then your kindness isn't strength. It's camouflage. And worst of all, it's transparent. You've been conditioned to believe that effort guarantees results. That sacrifice automatically earns recognition. That loyalty somehow protects you. That people will inherently return what you give. They won't. Because no one owes you anything. Not your boss, not your friends, not life itself. You might think you deserve respect because you've suffered silently, because you've always done the right thing, because you've been consistently reliable. But here's the brutal reality. No one's tracking your pain. No one's building a scoreboard of your good deeds. No one's keeping receipts of your sacrifices. You want proof? Look at Nikola Tesla. A genius inventor, a visionary who literally gave the world electricity. But he died broke. Forgotten in a hotel room while others patented his ideas. Why? Because he believed contribution automatically guaranteed reward. It didn't. It never does. This isn't a moral classroom. This is a battlefield. And on this battlefield, nice doesn't win. Prepare does. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you can negotiate, what you can enforce, what you're genuinely willing to take. The world doesn't reward goodness. It rewards leverage, position, timing, and perception. You think the universe is watching, keeping tabs? It's not. It's too busy rewarding the one who moved first, who took the deal, who controlled the narrative. Let me ask you this directly. How many times have you passively waited for an apology? Waited for that promotion? Waited for a simple thanks? And how many times did it actually come without you making a move? Now, critically, ask yourself what changed, what truly shifted when you finally stopped waiting and simply started acting. Julius Caesar didn't wait to be respected by the Roman Senate. He marched across the Rubicon. He created the position of power, and history adjusted itself accordingly. Why? Because history never favors the polite. It favors the one who fundamentally rewrites the order of things. You think karma has your back? You think they'll eventually see your worth? They won't. Because they're too busy taking what you never even bother to claim for yourself. If you want loyalty, create undeniable consequences for betrayal. If you want recognition, become absolutely impossible to ignore. If you want peace, become so demonstrably strong that no one even dares to disturb it. Here's the harsh, undeniable truth. You've inadvertently trained them to undervalue you. Not with overt weakness, but with a consistency that demanded no reward. With silence when you should have drawn blood, metaphorically speaking. You genuinely thought being reliable made you irreplaceable. But in their eyes, it just made you predictable, forgettable, usable. They forgot you because you never demanded to be remembered. They used you because you never created a cost for their actions. They ignored you because you made it incredibly easy for them to do so. Let that sink in. You feel betrayed. You weren't betrayed. You were just expected to stay passive, and until now you did. Because leaders don't ask, what do I deserve? They ask, what am I willing to enforce? You want respect? Start showing teeth. You want power? Stop needing permission. Remember this, Rosa Parks didn't scream. She simply, quietly refused to stand. And the entire system cracked. Why? Because power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a quiet, unwavering refusal that profoundly reshapes the rules. You keep obeying systems that were never built with you in mind, and then you wonder why they don't reward you. If the table won't serve you, flip it. If the room doesn't hear you, build one that does. You're not stuck. You're just still playing by a set of rules that were never, ever made for you to win. So, here's your next test, your pivotal moment. What are you still waiting for? Who are you still hoping will finally, miraculously, see your worth? And what will you do when they never do? Because the day you stop expecting the world to be fair is the day you become too dangerous to be ignored. Power doesn't go to the loudest voice in the room. It gravitates to the calmest. The one who doesn't flinch. The one who watches. The one who patiently waits. You, on the other hand, react. You take things personally. You explode over a few simple words. You collapse emotionally over rejection. You turn every minor discomfort into high drama. That's not emotion. That's leakage. Every reaction you give is a message, a signal, a weakness openly revealed. And believe me, they are watching. They're taking notes, testing precisely what sets you off. You think you're expressing yourself, being real, but you're just handing over the remote control to your own mind. Anyone can push a button and make you dance to their tune. You call it being real, but real doesn't mean out of control. Real doesn't mean volatile. And real certainly doesn't mean stupid. Machiavelli understood this intimately. The person who can't contain themselves will inevitably be contained by someone else. Why? Because people fear stillness. They respect silence. They obey those who aren't emotionally available for manipulation. You think feeling everything makes you deep? It doesn't. It makes you noisy. And noise is predictable. And predictable means you're simply not a threat. Stop explaining yourself. Stop defending your intentions. Stop giving precious reactions to people who feed off your triggers. Not everyone deserves a response. Most don't even deserve your attention. You don't need to reply. You need to assess and sometimes just disappear. The wolf doesn't bark at every squirrel. He saves his bite for the kill. That's why he's feared. That's why he leads. You want to stop being ignored? Stop being emotionally available. Withdraw. Observe. Calculate. Hold intense eye contact and say absolutely nothing. Smile once and mean it like a threat. Speak slowly, as if every single word costs you immense energy. Because it does, and they should pay to hear it. The more you say, the more they learn your weaknesses. The more you stay silent, the more they project their own fears onto you. You think strength is in action. No, it's in restraint. Holding back when every fiber of your being wants to explode. That's the power they can't copy. Because most people simply can't sit with discomfort. They itch to speak, to defend, to lash out. You, however, just watch. Because a true leader doesn't move on impulse. He moves on pattern. He doesn't fight every insult. He filters. Is this useful? Is this part of the bigger game? Or is this just bait? Most people fall into traps because they're in a hurry to respond, to prove themselves, to fix things, to react. And in doing so, they reveal everything. They surrender leverage. They turn emotion into a liability. But you hold. You breathe. You postpone the punch until it matters most. That's how you dominate without conflict. That's how you lead without making a single sound. So, here's the mirror. When was the last time you got baited by someone? When was the last time a stupid comment pulled you completely off your path? When was the last time you wasted hours in mental arguments that went absolutely nowhere? Now, ask yourself, what would happen if you just didn't flinch? Didn't reply? Didn't react at all? They'd panic. They'd fill in that silence with their own insecurities. They'd start playing your game. Because the one who moves second moves smarter. You don't need to say much. You just need to exist correctly. Presence is built long before you ever open your mouth. Respect is earned before you utter a single word. And if you're waiting to prove yourself through words, you've already lost. People don't follow your thoughts. They follow your signals, your stillness, your control, your profound self-possession. If your presence feels light, they will step right over you. If it feels heavy, they hesitate. And that hesitation right there is power. Machiavelli famously said, "Appear as you must. Command without force." Because the most powerful leaders never have to shout. They radiate inevitability. They walk into a room like they've already decided the outcome, like the game has already been won and all that's left is for everyone else to simply comply. You, perhaps, walk in like you need approval. They walk in like they own the outcome. You hope to be understood. They expect to be obeyed. That right there is the fundamental difference. You over-explain. You qualify every sentence. You smile too much. You apologize even before you've potentially offended anyone. They never do that. They let silence work for them. They speak less, but every single word lands like a decree. Why? Because they've built something you haven't: reputation. Reputation is your armor. It moves ahead of you. It softens resistance. It kills doubt before it even has a chance to form. You want to be trusted? Be consistent. You want to be respected? Be stable. You want to be followed? Be unchanging under pressure. Not cold, just clear. Not distant, but unreadable. You think being mysterious is manipulation? It's not. It's security. If they can't predict you, they can't control you. And if they can't define you, they'll inevitably label you strong. Most people overshare. They fill every space with chatter. They crave validation. They desperately try to seem open. But what they become, instead, is vulnerable, exposed, and easily replaceable. Meanwhile, the leader watches, silent, present, completely in control, and everyone senses it. Even the insecure ones hate it, but they can't look away because your presence makes them question themselves. Here's the absolute key: reputation isn't built in public. It's built in the private moments no one ever sees. When you choose discipline over comfort, when you choose truth over image, when you walk away from chaos not because you're afraid, but because it's simply beneath your level. People will test you. They'll push you. They'll mock you. They'll ignore you. But you do not respond. Because you know silence can intimidate far more than rage ever could. You carry yourself like someone who doesn't chase, who doesn't beg, who doesn't explain. You don't lower yourself to earn their trust. You rise above them until they have no choice but to follow. So ask yourself, what does your presence say about you before you even speak? Do they feel your standards without needing to be told? Do they shrink a little in your silence? Do they think twice before wasting your time? Because that is power. Not the kind you demand, but the kind that makes others adjust without you saying a single word. The game is already happening. The only real question is, are you playing it, or are you being played? Most people live moment to moment, impulse to impulse, emotion to emotion. They react, they defend, they guess, and then they wonder why they keep losing. Because while they're venting their frustrations, someone else is quietly planning. While they're desperately trying to prove a point, someone else is claiming the next 5 steps. While they fight petty battles for pride, someone else is building immense power in silence. Machiavelli didn't admire cruelty. He admired precision. He didn't say, be cold. He said, be calculated. Because power isn't about domination. It's about direction. And direction requires vision, not just of where you're going, but of where they're going, what they want, what they fear. Emotion blinds you. Strategy reveals everything. Emotion makes you loud. Strategy makes you effective. You want power? Build systems, not moods. Create patterns of behavior, not impulsive outbursts. Anticipate pressure instead of merely reacting to it. Because here's the unvarnished truth. The person with the calmest face usually has the deepest, most intricate plan. You've been taught to win arguments. But arguments don't build empires. Silence does. Restraint does. Making the move that no one saw coming, precisely because you didn't emotionally signal it, that builds empires. While they're distracted by noise, you're observing. While they chase applause, you position quietly. While they fight to be right, you design outcomes. That's the difference. That's why strategy always wins. Because it survives even when raw emotion burns itself out. Emotion feels good in the moment. Strategy delivers results that last. The one who plays the long game doesn't need to win every single moment. He needs to win what truly matters. He knows precisely when to lose on purpose, when to hold back, when to stay quiet, when to disappear completely and then reappear exactly when the balance shifts in his favor. You don't need to respond to everything. You need to choose your battleground. You don't need to win every clash. You need to win the war of perception. Here's the harsh truth. You've wasted years reacting, getting triggered, constantly proving yourself. And they've used every single reaction to map your moves. What if you simply stopped broadcasting? What if you stopped being readable? What if you became a black box, quiet, calculated, dangerous? They would panic. Because the person who plays in silence is the most feared on the board. You want a rule? Detach. Observe. Plan. Hold your cards close while they burn theirs, foolishly. And when the moment is precisely right, strike once. Strike clean. Strike final. Not for emotion. Not for drama. But for position. For leverage. For the next move. This isn't about being fake. It's about being disciplined. Not soft, not cruel, but intensely intentional. So, ask yourself, do you still want to be impulsive, driven by every passing feeling? Or do you want to be untouchable? Do you want to be right now, in this moment, only to fade? Or do you want to be the one they can't even challenge in 10 years? Because the one who plays the long game never runs out of time. He bends it to his will. You've been lied to. They told you leadership is a title, a reward, a role granted by approval. No. Leadership is claimed. Silently. Relentlessly. Privately. It begins when no one's watching. When you act with precision instead of raw emotion. When you build robust systems instead of constantly seeking praise. When you stop waiting and finally start moving. The world doesn't bend to good intentions. It bends to force. To structure. To those who've mastered themselves before daring to guide others. Look at the people who truly led throughout history. They aren't always the kindest. They certainly aren't the most emotional. They are the ones who can bear the enormous weight. The weight of being misunderstood. The weight of making decisions no one else can make. The weight of walking alone while others drown in noise. You want to lead? Then stop asking for permission to exist. Stop posting your pain, hoping for empty empathy. Stop shrinking yourself just to stay liked. A victim screams and fades. A strategist whispers once and the whole room shifts. Because in silence, the real power speaks. It speaks through your presence, your posture, your refusal to react, your refusal to explain, your refusal to chase validation. They'll call you cold. Let them. They'll say you changed. Good. You're not here to stay the same. You're here to become untouchable. You don't need everyone to follow you. You just need to become the one they absolutely cannot ignore. So, here's your final mirror, your ultimate challenge. Will you keep hoping the world miraculously softens for you? Or will you harden, sharpen, and lead? Because power doesn't wait for anyone. And no one is coming to save you. Not fate. Not luck. Not even love. Only strategy. Only discipline. Only you. Now go. Don't react. Rule.